Well, I was born in Northern Ireland, born there in 1951, brought up in the 50s and 60s to some extent, insofar as I was brought up in Ireland. So that, of course, was a major component in terms of the mindset. And what, of course, impinged, I suppose, mostly, had to do with the political situation in Northern Ireland. The state, the altered state, as some would have it, that was set up basically because a united Ireland, as it was then conceived, was not manageable in the early 1920s. So there was a sense, of course, always of some sort of unfinished business during my childhood. It's not as if I was conscious of violence on the streets, though, mind you, in the 1950s, as of course more notoriously from the late 60s on, there was an IRA campaign. So I remember quite vividly as a child being brought, well, actually stumbling upon with my father and a neighbour or two, a site where there'd obviously been some digging going on, probably for an arms dump or something along those lines. Of course, one promptly forgot about it. There was a sense of the British Army on the roads, of course. There was a sense of the B specials, as they were known, so as not to confuse them with the A specials, the auxiliary police force helping out the Royal Ulster Constabulary, as it was known, and helping them out at night, often farmers, neighbours, predominantly Protestant police force, helping out the RUC and stopping their Catholic neighbours, asking them who they were, what their business was, what their title was indeed, though they knew perfectly well what that was. So there was a sense of all that, and mind you, having said that, it was a terrifically, as I remember it anyhow, actually quite a joyous childhood. I was brought up in the countryside, and a countryside that then, certainly in that part of the world, was still predominantly one little field after another, with overgrowing hedgerows, full of little birds cheeping away, most of, or at least many of which have now, of course, gone the way of all bird flesh. They've been poisoned. One way or another, the land has been cleared in ways that were unimaginable then, built up in all sorts of ways. So the place, of course, was County Armagh, about halfway across Northern Ireland, an apple-growing district, a district where some of the people who had been planted there in the Elizabethan era had come from Warwickshire and brought with them their apple plants, but also much of the language which, of course, William Shakespeare was using and which was fossilized where I was brought up. So my father, for example, would use expressions like I'll warrant. What was I thinking of the other day? Various expressions that really have fallen into disuse in most other parts of the world, but which continue to be current where I was brought up. There was a sense too of the Irish language in the back of the mind, or perhaps not even quite so far back as the back of the mind, to the forefront of the mind. All the place names, again, were fossilized versions of Gaelic place names in many cases. So, you know, even the place names, College Lands, the school I went to, referred to an area of property that had belonged to Trinity College Dublin. When Trinity owned that land, the immediate townland was known as Keenahan, which means a mossy, boggy place. which was an accurate enough description of where we were. So, you know, this is just a little smattering of the backdrop, as it were, and the back of the mind. But all of that going on there. What a political sense. It was, I suppose, to characterise it, one would say that we were nationalists. That's to say that we did think of Ireland as being a continuum, let's say, being you know, essentially one culture, one place. I'm not sure if we were entirely right in thinking that. I mean, because while it is a small place, and while there is much that is continuous about it, it's actually a very various place too, despite its size. Astonishingly, one can drive, particularly nowadays, as they've paved it over, from one end of it to the other, comfortably within a day, drive across it in an afternoon. So one has to have that sense of the scale of the place, really, above all. And that, of course, that sense of the scale of the place does, you know, begin to allow one to make sense of the political background. So we were nationalists. In the Irish context, one would use that term of the Catholic, as we were, the Catholic community, rather than Republicans, though in that sense the sense of an Irish Republic was there, but without the armed struggle component, as it's known. That's to say, we were raised as non-violent, non-militant nationalists. So the area in which I was brought up, though, was an area to which we moved when I was about 4. So we were always something of outsiders. My mother was a school teacher, which put her somewhat beyond the pale, to use that great Irish notion, even more. So the fact that we were blow-ins, as they say, we were foreigners. In other words, we'd come from about 15 miles up the road, which, despite the fact that one can drive from one end of Ireland to the other in a day, as I've just been saying, 15 miles is like an Atlantic spread, you know. One might as well be going to Venus. So the area in which I was brought up was an area notable then for many families that were indeed engaged in, who were Republicans of the militant school. So that I went to school, for example, and my mother taught, and I was at school beside boys and girls who turned out to be involved in the armed struggle, as they refer to it, in Ireland, and many of them died, blew themselves up, were shot. So that was the background.